Okay. So we'll do that, which is nice, hopefully. Now I need to make sure it doesn't, right, now I need to close, that's it, right. Okay, great. Now then, let's go back to our Zoom. And here we are. All right, great, lovely. So we can start the recording. There we go. Amazing. Technology. All right, now then, we're going to start off with our tefillah, if I can find it. Here we go. Right. And we're going to share the screen and let somebody else in. Okay, share the screen. There we go. Right, lovely. Okay, everybody. So here we go. ריבון העולמים ואדוני אדונים, אב החמן והסליחות, מודים אנחנו לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, בקידה בשטח הוויה, שקרבתנו לתורתך ולעבודתך עבודת הקודש, ונתת לנו חלק בסודות תורתך הקדושה, מה אנו ומי חיינו, אשר עשית עמנו חסד גדול כזה. על כן, אנחנו מפילים תחנוננו לפניך, שתמחול ותסלח לכל חטאותינו ובנותינו, ואל יהיו עוונותינו מבדילים בינינו לביניך, וכן יהי רצון מלפניך, אדוני אלוהינו ולאבותינו, שתכונן את לבבינו ליראתך ולבדך, ותקשיב אוזניך לדברינו אלה, ותפתח לבבינו הראל בסודות תורתך, ויהיה לימודנו זה נחת רוח, לפני כיסא כבודך קרח ניחוח, ותציל עלינו, אור מקור נשמתנו בכל בחינתנו, שיתנוצצו ניצוצות עבודיך הקדושים, אשר על ידם גלית דבריך אלה בעולם, וזכותם, וזכות אבותם, וזכות תורתם ותמימותם וקדושתם, יעמוד לנו לבן לקשר בדברים אלו, ובזכותם תראה עינינו במה שאנו לומדים, כמאמר נעים זמירות ישראל, גל עיני והביט הנפלאות מתורתך, כי אדוני תן חוכמה מפיו דעת ותבונה, יהיו לו רצונים מפי, וגאו ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Amen.
Yehudah, the sound's really bad today. It's very crackling. To me, it's very crackling.
Oh dear. Crackling. Susan, are you there? Does it sound tinny like it does sometimes?
I hear the crackling too. Maybe try and maybe wiggle the wire, make sure it's in all the way.
It might be my telephone making problems. Let me take my telephone away. Okay. Is that any better?
Keep talking a little bit.
A bit more.
Yeah, there's like a fuzziness after when you finish a word or
it's like a bad
phrase.
it's like a bad telephone line.
A bad telephone. Oh dear. I can't. The only thing I can think to do is actually to start again. That's about the only thing we can think of to do. All right.
Okay.
All right.
So we can stay on, right? Or the whole conversation is going to close and then we join again? Is that how it works?
I'm not quite sure how that works. If you guys stay on, maybe I can get back in again. All right. That's going to be interesting, isn't it?
Well, you're the meeting host, so I think when you leave, well, let's give it a try.
Give it a try. Okay, everybody. If I leave, if it all closes down, okay, then we'll
come back.
Yeah. Okay. That's the only thing I can think to do in this circumstance.
Make me a host and we might be able to stay on.
Oh, it says leave meeting. Let me just try that. I'll just leave. I see what I can do. I can assign a new host.
Yeah.
Yes. You can make Lauren the new host because that was her idea.
No, but then she can't share files. Only the host can share files.
Yeah, all right. But no, but you can let me in again.
Yeah, I can let her in and she can do that.
And then we can, yeah, and then you can make me host again afterwards. Okay. Great. Let's try that. Okay, so I'm going to make you, you're the host.
Oh, she's gone. Hi, Elaine. So I think Yehudah might be rebooting her computer before she joins us again.
Elaine, you're on mute.
Hi. Hi
Okay.
to everyone.
Hi, now we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Where are you calling in from, Nicole?
I live in Denmark, in Copenhagen.
Wow.
So it's 6:30 in the evening here.
And for Elaine, who lives in the Berkeley area, what time is it for you? 9:30 in the morning?
9:30 and I'm just waking up. Forgive me. My eyes look a little bleary still. I never sleep in, but I did today.
Right.
Yeah, it was great. So Copenhagen must stay light until very, very, very late in the evenings in the summer, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, 11 o'clock. Shabbat goes out at 12.
Oh,
About 11.
Oh my gosh.
And then
And
Shabbat
you
comes in at 3 o'clock in the winter. So
Oh, yeah.
it's quite extreme sometimes.
And you light candles late also, I guess, on
No,
Fridays.
but we bring it in early, like everybody,
Of
the
course.
community at 8 o'clock.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, because otherwise it will be crazy.
Oh,
No, I think.
wow.
how many synagogues in Copenhagen?
We have 2.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I bet they're beautiful. Are they old?
The one of them, well, they're pretty old. I mean, one of them is just like a small house in a house, and the other one's a big synagogue.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, it's 300 years old.
Oh my goodness. I'll have to look that up. I'll have to Google 300-year-old one.
Next year, it's 400 years since the Jews were invited into Denmark.
Oh,
Wow, they were invited in. That's amazing.
Yeah,
I didn't know about
they were good
that.
with money. I think the king invited them in because they were good with money. And then there was a long time before they were allowed to build a synagogue, and there were lots of small communities. But in the end, the small communities had to join together, and they were allowed to build a big synagogue.
Wow.
But now it hardly gets filled. It's a shame, really.
Yeah. I guess the community is like many communities, the numbers go down over the years.
Yeah.
Oh, Yedidah's back. Hi, Yehudah.
Hi.
So Yehudah, you're still on. There you are. Okay.
All right. Is that any better now?
It's fantastic. It's just like it should be.
Thank you.
Well done.
A miracle.
Good job.
I changed over the speakers to earphones. I did everything I could think of. All right.
Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm pleased that we solved whatever it was. Okay. Technology rules. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're actually going to be thinking about the 17th day of Tammuz. Okay, and it's a little bit early to be thinking about it because, in fact, the fast day is not till Sunday, but it's our opportunity to learn together before Sunday. So this is why we're going to be thinking about it now. Now, what we want to do is we're thinking about it because, in a way, it seems a strange thing to be mourning. We're starting the 3 weeks and we're going to be mourning, the destruction of the temple and mourning the fact that Jerusalem was under siege and the walls of Jerusalem were breached. Okay. And this seems to be rather odd. You come to Jerusalem, Baruch Hashem, it's fantastic, wonderful city. You can even go on the light rail and you can, go around Jerusalem, the museums, the views, the cafes, the people in the streets. It seems in a way ungrateful to still be mourning. And so we need to understand what it is that the 17th day of Tammuz is actually teaching us and why it's still important for us today. In fact, it's probably even more important for us today than it ever was before. And in order to understand this, we actually need to understand what Jerusalem means on the inner, not on the outer, because the aspect of Jerusalem is not an outer thing. The outer is a reflection of the inner, okay? So Jerusalem is actually an inner aspect. And in fact, the Zohar says very clearly that all our festivals and our the Hagim and the Moadim, the festivals and the fast days and the appointed times are not historical events. In fact, they are energetic events, okay? So they're things which are happening inside ourselves. And this is why it still is appropriate for us to fast on the 17th day of Tammuz. Now, what we want to look at today is an article that was written by Rabbi Avraham Mordecai Gottlieb, and it appears in his book, that's the book, Margalot Shana. Okay, you probably can't see it came out backwards or something on the film, but anyhow, it's actually a very lovely book in which he's written down thoughts and ideas and talks which he received from his rabbis, the Baal Sulam, and of course his son, Rabbi Baruch Shalom Halevi Ashlag, who was Rabbi Gottlieb's teacher for many, many years. Rabbi Gottlieb was in Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag's Beit Midrash from the time he was 14 until the time he died. So he was there for about 50 years at least, okay? It's extraordinary. So he really imbued the teachings of his rabbi, and he wrote down these ideas. So we're going to look at today an article that he wrote on the inner meaning of the 17th day of Tammuz. Okay, so because I had to start my computer, I'll have to just reopen the files that I had ready. So hopefully that should not take a, oh, Yud Zayin Tammuz. There we go, we found it. There we are. Now I need to share my screen. And here we are. Amazing. All right then. Yud Zayin Tammuz. And now it's in Hebrew, okay? And you can see the Hebrew, but I'll just basically read it in the English. All right, I'll be translating because otherwise it'll take too long. Okay, so I've also got the book actually open here because it didn't scan brilliantly well. As you can see, it did pretty well. Yud Zayin Tammuz, where does it begin? Here it is. Okay, from the 17th of Tammuz, we begin the 3 weeks, okay? And these are called Bein HaMetzarim, okay? Bein HaMetzarim means narrow time, okay? A place where it's not ample, you feel constricted, okay? It's constricted time. And these days start on the 17th of Tammuz and finish with the fast of the 9th of Av. And in fact, as we said historically, on these days, troubles happened to our forefathers, as we know. And in actual fact, on the 17th of Tammuz, 5 bad events happened to Israel. Okay, what were these 5 events? First of all, the sin of the golden calf, all right? So on the sin of the golden calf, the children of Israel, what was their sin? First of all, the Zohar says it was mostly the Erev Rav who got this, but the problem was that the children of Israel didn't protest. That was the main problem. And the Erev Rav who came out of Egypt were not inclined or given to serving God through faith. And they wanted knowledge, they wanted actual experience. And this is what the sin of the golden calf was about. And when Moses came down the mountain and he saw what was going on, he took the 2 tablets of stone, which had been given to him by God, and broke them. So the first disaster that happened on the 17th of Tammuz was the breaking of the tablets of stone by Moses on the mountain. The second negative event was that on the 17th of Tammuz, the Korban Tamid, the sacrifice of the Tamid, the daily sacrifice, okay, stopped, okay? It was the first time it had ever been stopped. And I don't know whether that refers to the first temple or the second temple. The third negative event was in the time of the second temple, the city, the walls of the city were breached, okay? And this was, in fact, the beginning of the destruction, which finished on the 9th of Av. And there was another bad event, apostomos. The wicked apostomos burnt the Torah. I don't know what that means. And he put a statue in the temple. And these were the 5 disasters that happened on this day. Okay? But he goes on to say what we started with, that all the festivals of Israel and the fasts only come to bring us the energies that are important for us today, okay? So we look through the prism of the past to the events which are happening inside our own lives, okay? So we need to look at what's happening to Israel now in general, and what's happening to each one of us inside ourselves. And this is a time when we take the opportunity to look inside, okay? Okay. The Bala Sulam writes at the end of his introduction to the Zohar that everybody thinks that these tikkunim that we need to correct, the rectifications that we need to correct and to improve are aspects which are outside. Okay, we think that if we were to do all types of improvements on ourselves, external improvements, this will improve the situation. But in fact, he writes that what's outside of us is only a mirror of what is actually happening inside ourselves. So what is it inside ourselves that we need to find? We need to find the Jerusalem inside ourselves. This is what we really need to look at. What is this? What is the Shekhinah? What is the Jerusalem inside ourselves? Because the Jerusalem, the walls were breached on the 17th of Tammuz. What is the Jerusalem inside ourselves that we need to find and to correct? Because it's not what is outside that's important, it's what is inside. On the contrary, if we try to correct what's outside ourselves, okay, the outer world, all right, it would be like somebody who goes by a mirror and he looks in the mirror and he sees his face is all dirty and, he's got smudge on his nose. So he takes a rag and he tries to clean the mirror, okay? But in fact, of course, he's not managing to clean the mirror. He won't clean himself by cleaning the mirror. So if we look on the outside and we look at what's happening outside, that's only the mirror. We need to find out what's happening inside. Now, the sages, on the 17th of Tammuz, the city of Jerusalem was cleaved into, the walls were breached, all right? And basically the goyim, the armies of the Romans, okay, came into the city, all right? But the sages say, whoever the temple was not built in his days, it's as if it was destroyed in his days. So we need to look about us and we say, well, why is the temple not built in our days? Because if the temple's not built in our days, then maybe it's equivalent to being destroyed in our days. So that's something we need to look at. All right. And this is what he says: since we, by our deeds, are not managing to bring about the building of the temple, it's as if we are actually destroying it. How can this be? And the Baal Sulam explained that Jerusalem is the point of holiness which is to be found in the soul of every person of Israel. Okay? Well, in fact, every person, we've all got a Yerushalayim inside ourselves, with the point of the soul, the point of the holiness inside ourselves. Now, we might say to ourselves, well, do I really want the temple to be rebuilt? I mean, we've got to be honest. We haven't had a temple for 2,000 years. And most people, and we don't really understand any longer what part the temple would actually play in our lives. And on an external basis, it certainly seems, odd. I mean, would I really want to get a lamb and take it to the temple and have it slaughtered and offered up on the sacrifice? I mean, what would that mean for me? So in fact, all the work of the temple is on the inner. We need, if we understand the inner first, in fact, we will get to the outer. And that's actually the way it needs to work. We need to find that Jerusalem, that point of holiness, which is inside our hearts, okay? And we need to understand what the meaning of the sacrifice is on the inner, what the intentions are. And then what needs to happen on the outside will actually happen as a simple flow of energy. All right? So this is what he says: Jerusalem is the point of holiness, which is to be found in the soul of every person. In the soul of each one of us, we have two powers: the power of holiness and the power of uncleanness. All right? So we have the soul and the body, or the ego, okay? The framework of holiness, the framework of uncleanness. This is the human being. We've got these two opposites: the good inclination, the evil inclination. All right. Now the characteristic of uncleanness is, what is that characteristic? Is that a person desires to receive pleasure and joy for all his days for the sake of himself, and to fulfill his own appetites, okay? And in doing so, his reality is what's real to him, and the other person's reality feels very unreal to him, okay? In fact, anything which is outside his own reality seems to be empty and unreal, okay? And that's actually true. We're very aware of our own selves. We're very unaware of the reality of somebody else. That's also true regarding the soul within us, because the soul within us is a part of God within us. So it's like we're unaware of the God within us. We're very aware of the ego within us. We're very unaware of the soul within us. Okay. He goes on to say, when do we become aware of the other person? When we feel that he's got something to offer us, something that we can receive from him. But the other person is himself as an individual is very difficult for us to actually contact, because our selfish love tends to block our sight. Okay. Likewise, it tends to block our faith, because the desire for knowledge is also a will to receive for ourselves alone. and it stops us from having faith, from giving faith to something because we want to understand everything. Okay, that's the point of uncleanness within us, our desire to receive everything. Okay, and before a person puts any energy into anything, he first of all wants to know what will he gain from it. But in fact, the way of Israel, the way of Judaism, the way of the Yerushalayim within us, the way of Jerusalem within us is the exact opposite. Okay, first we need to do, only then we understand. First we need to act in faith. Okay, so Jerusalem is the point of holiness which is found in our soul. Now, Jerusalem, Rabbi Gottlieb writes, is made up of two words, Yareh and Shalem, okay? And now these two words actually teach us about two opposite poles in how we serve God, all right? Yareh means having reverence. Shalem means whole. And in fact, it's the right-hand line and the left-hand line. But before we go on to explain what these are, Rabbi Ashlag first of all discusses in general what is the framework of holiness. And the framework of holiness is summed up by love. You shall love your neighbor as yourself, okay? And it's loving the other, and its summit is the love of God, okay? As we say, and as the Torah says, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Also, within the point of holiness that is within us is the issue of faith, as we spoke above, okay? First we do from faith. Only then we need to know and understand. First of all, we need to fulfill the commandment of God. Or first of all, we give something to somebody else, okay, for our friends, for the Creator, all right. And only afterwards do we worry about what we get for it, okay, or whether we might not get anything at all. Doesn't matter, because we're doing it for them, okay. So even if we don't feel any taste at all, and we don't understand what we get for it or why we do it, nevertheless, this is what we need to do. We give to God first. And this is what the Holy Blessed One said, and I've remembered for you the love of your youth. When is Israel designated as giving kindness, doing kindness with the Creator? When we walked after God in the wilderness, in a land which is not sown. What does that mean? When we go after God in faith, even when we don't understand, even when we feel awful, but we know what we need to do because we've learned it in the Torah, what we need to do, okay, then we just do it even without feeling, okay? So if a person feels good and feels happy in what he's doing, that's fine. That's not a negative. That's wonderful. Okay. But what I've got means here is that that good feeling should not be the condition for his work. All right. So sometimes we feel fine, we feel good, and we feel happy to do a mitzvah for a friend, or to do a mitzvah for God, and we should feel happy. It's wonderful when we feel happy. What he means is that happiness should not be the condition, okay? That we're willing to do for God even when we don't feel anything. That's what he means. Okay, so what is Jerusalem? Jerusalem is the holiness in our hearts, okay? And in fact, he says, whenever we find it written in the Torah, or in the sages, or in our prayers, the issue of destruction of Jerusalem and the hope for the rebuilding of Jerusalem, it actually means we're talking about the rebuilding of the point of holiness, which is to be found inside each single one of us, okay? And this is a time where we have a special time in the year, the 3 weeks, where we go inside, okay, and we can find its destruction. What does the destruction mean? It means that the love of ourselves, our selfish love, has taken precedence, okay? And the love of God, or the love of our fellow man, has become less important in our eyes. And this is what the Zohar calls the Shekhinah is in the dust. Okay, the Shekhinah is in exile, because the holy Shekhinah, which is a point within our hearts, okay, is in the dust and is not considered as important. For the holy Shekhinah is actually the essence of Jerusalem, of Yerushalayim, which is the quality of giving unconditionally and of faith. And what it means that it's in the dust, it's not our first priority. Okay, so the time of the 3 weeks is actually the time of looking to see where we really are. Okay, it's a little it's uncomfortable, and these 3 weeks are uncomfortable. Okay. So what happens is because we're not wanting to honor the Shekhinah, we're not putting it first, we're not considering it. Therefore, on the 17th of Tammuz, the city was breached. Okay. Now, Rav Gottlieb says the city, which in Hebrew is the word ir, city, okay, actually comes from the language of hitorut, awakening, okay, that we awaken to holiness. And there is that we awaken to the holiness that there is inside each one of us, the aspect of Jerusalem. And this awakening has been breached, okay, and not available to us. And we are not finding the character, the ability of taking upon ourselves the yoke of the kingdom of heaven from faith in the greatness of the Creator. Okay, and this is what it means that the city was breached. Now, we said earlier that Jerusalem is the language of those two words, Yarei Shalem. But before I go on, I ought to stop a moment and just ask you, are there any questions or comments or ideas or anything? Gosh. All right. You're all right then? Okay.
I'm with you.
Right, that's lovely. As long as you're with me. So what we're going to be doing is in these next 3 weeks, we're going to have an inner look. All right. So Yerushalayim is the two words Yarei and Shalem. And we said that they are two opposites, like we have body and soul. We always, in Judaism, we always have these opposites, okay? So what are they about? So the Yarei, okay, is Yirah. He's concerned, okay? What does he want? He wants to be concerned that he will not cause a defect in his service of God. When the Zohar teaches that love of God and reverence for God, ahava v'yirah, always come together. Okay, they always come together. They're not separated. All right. So you've got the love of God and you've got the reverence for God. Okay. If a person has the love of God, he also wants to have that that reverence, that he's not going to cause a defect. He's not going to lose that love. He's not going to cause a withdrawal of that love. So he doesn't want to do anything that's going to separate him from God. That's the Yarei. Okay. And the Shalem, okay, is the absolute idea that we are in faith with God, all right? So that represents the love of God. That represents the shlemut, the belief, okay, that everything that happens to us and everything that comes upon us is absolutely, comes from God and is in our very best interests, that God is good and does good. So on the one hand, you have the yareh, and on the other hand, you have shalem. So the aspect of shalem is to be in joy, okay? To actually feel that everything in his world is good, just the way it is. And that includes himself. Now, that's not so easy. Now, when you've got two opposites like that, they can't come together, all right? Because two opposites will just cancel each other out. So what we actually have, we have most of the day, a person needs to be shalem. He needs to be whole. He needs to be in joy, okay? All right? And only like the half an hour a day, he needs to look to see where he's actually causing a defect in his love for God, in his yiur, where he to look at the yiur. So most of the time he needs to be in joy and in faith. He needs to be the shalem aspect, all right? Now, that's not so easy because, you know, life being life, things happen, all right? Or the things that we want don't happen, or, you know, and I think, you know, all of us have had very difficult, you know, last year, okay? And for some of us, it's getting better, not for everybody yet, all right? And it's been difficult, you know, socially, economically for many people. People have got sick. There's been a lot of fear around. There still is fear around. And to be happy, all right? Knowing that everything comes from God and that God loves us and that he's full of goodness, that's not altogether easy. Now, Rav Ashlag is not talking about just saying with your mouth, Baruch Hashem, Hakol B'Seder, how are you? Great, okay? What he actually means is to really feel that inside ourselves, all right? Now, of course, when we say things, you know, positive things, on the outside, it's helpful, all right? Because it reminds us. But what he really means is to actually feel that joy, okay? That's what it really means. To feel the Yerushalayim is to feel the Shalem, is to feel the joy that we are here and that we have some contact at least with the creator of the world, all right? That at least we're thinking about him, that at least we're thinking about our relationship with him, that at least we're doing one thing, okay? And that needs to give us great joy, all right? And that joy needs to be for all the day, okay? And he says here, how can a person walk around in the world of the Holy Blessed One unless he's full of joy and happiness, okay? But in fact, most of us, okay, in general, what we walk around feeling worried with all sorts of thoughts and troubles, okay? So what does that mean? It means that we're not looking at our Jerusalem. Do you see what I'm saying? The Jerusalem in our heart is not getting the expression that it needs. So the Yerushalayim needs to be expressed as Yareh. I don't want to do a defect. I don't want to do something which is negative, okay? I want to be in Shalem, okay? I don't want to do negative. That's just for half an hour a day. Most of the time we need to be Shalem. Most of the time we need to be in joy that we have at least some connection with God, that at least he's given us the privilege of even thinking about him or even saying one word or something. Okay, and that needs to give us joy, because after all, the greatness of God is such that really, who are we, you know? And yet he's given us this connection. He's put his Shekhinah inside of us. He's given us to be part of his Shekhinah. It's just an amazing thing. And if we think about it that way, that alone, that thought alone should give us the joy. And that helps us repair our Yerushalayim, our Jerusalem. Okay? So what we're saying is that for most of the day, a person needs to have that reliance on God, okay, to think about positive things and to actually be happy. However, it doesn't mean to say that we ignore reality. We certainly need to look at reality, but we look at it through the lens of faith, okay? We look at it through the lens of faith. So even when we see things which we find troubling and difficult, we nevertheless ascribe everything to God, and that gives us our trust, and we're able to put our trust in God that way, okay? And this is what he says. A man needs to ask from God that he should give him the merit, that God should have mercy on him and give him the power of faith in God's greatness and in his eternal elevation. Okay? And he says, I mean, I can't say, you know, that I'm reading this because I can't talk from personal experience, unfortunately. I can't say that I've reached, you know, this power of faith. I really can't. And in a way, it feels to me like, you know, like a bit of a fraud, you know, giving this out. But I know it's not my writing. I'm giving out what the Balus Sulam taught, what Rabbi Baruch Shalom Ashlag taught, and what Rav Gottlieb taught. Okay, so it's not Yedido. I'm just bringing it through for everybody in English, which is what I feel my job to be. If I actually was able to do this, it would be a better situation, but we're not. Okay, so from this, at least I do understand how very difficult it is to find this place of joy within ourselves. But he goes on to say something very beautiful. Even if a person merits, even to the tiniest level of faith in the greatness of God, then he's already wandering around in another world. Psst. Now that's very encouraging, isn't it? We don't have to reach the great heights, you know, of these great Rabbonim, okay? Even if we just do a little bit of this is already encouraging, okay? So every mitzvah that a person can manage to do, just does one little mitzvah, he needs to be very happy. Thank you, God, you gave me the opportunity, okay? Because he's serving the great king, HaMelech HaGadol HaGibor VaNorah, the great, mighty, and awesome king. So even if we did one bit of mitzvah, we need to be really happy about that. And that's the shalem bit of the word Yerushalayim. Okay. All right. I want to make sure we do everything, you know, so we don't sort of end up in the middle. Let's just see. All right. So he says if any mitzvah that we do, he needs to be happy with it, that he's fulfilling the mitzvah of the Supreme King of Kings, and he's doing his well. And at this point, when he's doing the mitzvah, this bit's important. It doesn't matter what quality of doing he is at or what were his thoughts, okay? Even if his thoughts had gone off somewhere else and his quality of doing it wasn't so great, nevertheless, the fact that he's able to fulfill the mitzvah of the king of all of the existence is a tremendous thing. And when a person asks from God that he should enlighten him with the light of this faith, and he walks in the world of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and is happy, okay? And every single action and every single happening that happens in his life, he needs to believe that it didn't happen by accident, but everything comes from the from one will, echad yachid miyuchad, the one desire to give goodness to the created beings, okay? So even the realities which seem to us to be hard and difficult only come from God, who gives goodness to the created beings. And so long as a person is clinging to these thoughts, he can be happy. And this is what it says, serve the Lord with gladness. And this is the way a person can be in wholeness. And he needs to be in this wholeness and gladness most of the day. However, now we come to the yareh bit. But our teacher, the Baal Sulam, also said that a person needs to dedicate just a little bit of his day to some self-discipline. He needs to, at this point, he doesn't look at the greatness of the Creator, but he looks inside himself and he tries to see a sort of accurate assessment of where he's progressed. Where is he really standing with his faith in God? Can he really behave during the day as somebody who is in the presence of the great and awesome King of creation? Or where really are his thoughts when he's learning Torah or where he's praying? Okay, and where does he really stand in relationship to his fellow man? Does he really love his fellow human being as he should? Okay, and so at this point, when he looks inside and he criticizes himself, as we're all so good at doing, okay, and when we really see the truth, and the truth is really bitter, that we don't love our fellow man, okay, and we're not acting in the way that we should, okay, and we're not having reverence for our teachers in the way that we should, okay, then at this point, we need to pray. Okay. All right. At this point, we need to pray. Okay. This point, when we see the yiur, we look in the yiur, we look and see where am I not reverence? Where am I not giving reverence to God? Where am I not doing the work in the way that I should to? Okay. And this is the point where we actually go inside ourselves and see how far our reality is, how far our truth is from the love of God, from the love of our fellow man, how far we really are from faith, okay? All right, and that's the point when we need to feel sad, all right? Then we need to feel, on that point we mourn, all right? So that's that point, okay? But only half an hour a day, a maximum, and really at a fixed time, okay? Now, I have to say that as a woman, I don't find it easy to have a fixed time. I think many women are in this situation. Our lives flow in different ways than men's flow, but you can do it with a fixed activity, okay? That Rav Ashlag taught to do it at a fixed time. But I think a fixed activity will work just as well. Okay, like when you're washing the dishes, it's a good time, or when you're taking the dog for a walk, or whatever your fixed activity happens to be, that's a time when you can use your time to look inside ourselves. All right. So this is what he says. This is Yerushalayim. On one hand, yareh, okay, which comes from the hopefully constructive criticism that we look at ourselves, okay, and see where we really are at, because we can't go around in cloud cuckoo land, all right? We need to be in the joy most of the day, as is fitting for somebody who's walking around in the world that God is running, okay? But we do need to deal with our own reality, okay? So that we need both. And this is what Judaism is about, is the unification of opposites, all right? So on the one hand, we have yareh, on the other hand, we have shalem, okay? Which is when we're meant to be most of the time in wholeness and in joy from our looking in faith on the greatness and exaltation of God. all right? And this is what he says, that the city of Jerusalem needs to be built from these two opposite approaches inside ourselves. And this is what he says, Pinot Tzva of Kedoshim, these two opposite, the corners of the holy hosts, and this is in Tfilat Yotze'or, these two opposite ends, from the side echad we Yareh, and from the other side we Shalem, okay? And if we go in these two directions that he gives us, okay, looking at the truth and prayer, which is Yareh, and most of the day in joy and faith, then we come the way of holiness. And this is the correct way for the building of Jerusalem. Okay? Right. Now, how much time we got? There's one more bit. We can look a little, he says, at the Haftarah that we read on the Tanit Tzibor, which is Isaiah chapter 55, Tanit Tzibor on a fast day, in which the prophet says, seek the Lord when he is to be found, call him when he is close, that the wicked one should leave off his way, and the man the iniquity of his thoughts, and he should return to God, and God will have mercy upon him, and to our God, because he gives much forgiveness. Now, what does it mean that a person needs to seek God when he is to be found? After all, God should be, we say, God is with us all the time. The whole world is full of his glory. Okay? All right? So what does it mean seeking God when he is close? All right? And the answer is that God is close all the time, but it's from our side. It's what we need to feel, all right? From the actual fact, God is close to us always. It's everything is coming from our side, from our point of view, from our feeling, okay? How can we feel close to God? How can we be looking for that closeness? All right? And that is just as God is most merciful, so you be merciful. Just as God has mercy and loves his creatures with pure love, so we also need to work on our side of giving, okay, and come in what's called affinity of form with God, okay? That closeness means that we need to be in affinity of form with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just as he is merciful in giving, we also need to be merciful in giving from our side as well. So that is actually how we can come close to him. The more we're able to try to come close to our fellow human being and to help them from love and to give to them whatever, whoever they are, whatever we can do, all right, and try to do it, from from a loving place as possible, we will find God more in our lives because we're coming into affinity of form, okay? There's a beautiful piece when it says, just like God clothes the naked, we need to clothe the naked. When God feeds the hungry, we need to feed the hungry. It can be simple things. It doesn't have to be anything complicated, all right? But whatever we can do to help somebody else, all right, brings us closer to him because we are coming now into affinity of form with him, all right? Now, I think actually that was pretty much the bit I wanted to bring. Yes. So before in here, so let's just stop the show a moment. So let's go back to this, the idea of the 3 weeks. one more time. We have, I think there's something very special because Moses, went up the mountain to get the Torah first on Shavuot, yes? Okay. And he was up the mountain for 40 days, okay? And then, of course, we had the golden calf, and on the 17th of Tammuz, unfortunately, he comes down and he breaks the tablets of stone, the first tablets of stone. And in Deuteronomy, when he's sort of going over these events, what do we find? We find that Moses actually says that he went up on the mountain 3 times, okay? The first period was from Shavuot to the 17th day of Tammuz, which is the period we're coming to an end now, all right? Then we have the period from the 17th of Tammuz, okay, which is another 40 days, all right? And it finishes on, I suppose, Rosh Chodesh Elul. I haven't actually counted that. Probably around about then, okay? And then he goes up again, the 3rd period. Now, just the sages tell us that the first period was in total reconciliation, okay? And so was the 3rd period. So that the 3rd period when Moses was up on the mountain, that's from Rosh Chodesh Elul to Yom Kippur, was a period of great love, okay? They say it was equivalent to the first period. So this middle period, which was the period of the sin and forgiveness, was actually when the actual forgiveness was happening, all right? Moses went straight up the mountain again with God, okay? And in this time, he prayed and God forgave, okay? So on the one hand, we have the events of the 3 weeks, the breach of the walls, and eventually culminating on the 9th of Av in the destruction of the temple, okay? But it's also time of forgiveness, all right? And in fact, when the temple, when the Romans burst into the Babylonians, whoever it was, and because both the temples were destroyed traditionally on the 9th of Av, when they came in, they saw that the Kruvim were facing each other, which is a sign of love and forgiveness and reconciliation. Okay, so on the one hand, it's a time, not an easy time when we look and see where our own Jerusalem is being breached, all right? But on the other hand, we also need to know it's a time when Moses was up on the mountain with God and God was giving forgiveness, all right? So that was pretty well what we wanted to do today. So when we come to the fast day, Bezrat Hashem, on Sunday, okay, let's do it, from the inner. Take the day as a time for going inside, okay, and looking at our own inner Jerusalem. All right? Great. Any questions or anything?
Is there any connection between this time period and, I know Israel is, when the Jews were leaving Egypt is called a confined and narrow, constricted place. Is there any parallel between that and this time, which is also considered a sort of a constricted and narrow place?
That's a good question. I don't know exactly. Let me think a minute. There certainly is. There is a connection, I think. Yes. The temples were destroyed because the sins of the first temple was for the sin of for bloodshed and for avodah zarah and for adultery, and the second temple was for sinat chinam. Okay, now Mitzrayim is also considered as a klipa of the will to receive oneself alone, because it's actually the desire was actually to receive God in knowledge. So both aspects, the temples were destroyed because the people were only acting to fulfill their wills to receive for themselves alone. And Egypt is also a desire to receive for yourself alone. So there's definitely a connection. Yeah, I think you're onto something there. Definitely there is. I mean, there are different types of the ego, aren't they? Of ego, not ego, but egoism, of receiving for ourselves alone, of our evil inclination. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? Nope. All right. Well, okay. So listen, all being well, have a safe and easy fast on the Shivras B'Tammuz on Sunday. Okay. And Bezrat Hashem, see you next week. Have a good Shabbat in the meantime.
Thank you so much.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Thank you very
shalom.
much.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Shabbat
welcome.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Yehudah.
You're welcome, Lauren. I love your t-shirt. It's gorgeous.